Okay guys, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the period 1500 to 1700. So following on from the Normans, I've done little red bubbles of changes that are quite important that we're going to be talking about for the next maybe 7 or 8 videos, okay? So I'll talk about them as I move around. Overview of the period 1500 to 1700. We have this very, very similar punishments, fines, corporal punishment and capital punishment. So for example, you will be fined money if you commit minor crimes. You might be put in stocks or whipped as part of corporal punishment. And we still have capital punishment, which is either beheading or hanging. Just a quick note about a change in the use of stocks and pillories as a corporal punishment. From this period onwards, stocks are mainly used for those people who can't pay a fine. And the pillory is used for those people who cheat at cards or whatever, or sell rotten food or bread that's mouldy. And essentially, this is embarrassing and intimidating, and trying to make people realise that these things shouldn't be done, and to make them look bad in their local communities. We have something called Justices of the Peace, or JPs, which I'm going to talk about in the next video. These are local magistrates who deal with minor crimes, and every four times a year, all your Justices of the Peace will meet, and they will do something called a quarter session, which is where they will judge slightly more serious cases. In addition to these, they have what are called royal judges, which visit twice a year, and they deal with really, really serious crimes like murders, multiple murders, treason, and that kind of thing. But it's worth just noting in this video that the JPs exist. England is a very superstitious country. It always has been, since it was Christian, and even before when it was pagan. Belief in things like the devil and witches and evil supernatural beings is very, very, very common. And this period sees a real jump in superstition. Essentially, we're dealing with things like people not being able to explain why things happen. So, crops fail, it must be the devil, it must be a witch, okay? So you're going to see a big jump in superstition, and witchcraft is going to be a really important thing that we're going to look at in a video. Treason, the idea of overthrowing the king or the government, has always been a crime. And in this period, we see the laws become really tough. So punishment is being hanged, drawn, and quartered, and then body parts displayed as a warning. And we will look at a case study of Guy Fawkes and the Gunpowder Plot as an example of that. Jails are in existence, but only used for prostitutes and vagabonds. Vagabonds and beggars, you're going to see a huge increase in the amount of people wandering around the country, who are hungry or unemployed. So we'll do a whole video on vagabonds because they're really important. And it's also just worth noting that hue and cry is still being used, and we still have constables or parish constables who lead the hue and cry and are there to catch criminals. But it's declining in its ability to actually police, because towns are growing in size, population growth is a huge thing in this period, and it's just harder and harder to use a hue and cry. Okay, I did talk about the red bubbles. Religious turmoil is going to be a huge factor that we're looking at. So we're going to look at religious change. We're going to look at, obviously, Henry VIII is going to split from Rome, and you're going to have Protestants and Catholics causing religious tensions. Directly linked to that is Guy Fawkes and the Catholic plot to blow up King James I. Landowners' attitudes are going to be a big factor. The attitudes of the people who have power and land against those who don't, and the poor. Printing becomes something really important to mention. Pamphlets and broadsheets are able to spread ideas around the country, and people are able to read about things that are happening, which is really important. I've mentioned population growth. That's really, really important. Population of England is going to grow. With that comes problems like unemployment, famine. If you get a bad harvest, you're going to have lots and lots of vagabonds. And then finally, we've got economic changes as we move very, very close to the industrial period and the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so hopefully that's a nice overview of the period, and it leads on to the next video where I'm going to talk about how effective law enforcement was in this period.